All right, let's start with a question that will shake your core. What if everything you've been told about reality is a lie? What if the life you think you're living, your job, your relationships, your goals, is just a distraction from the truth of who you really are? Most people spend their entire lives asleep, trapped in a dream they mistake for reality. They chase wealth, fame, approval, or comfort, never realizing that the answers they seek cannot be found outside of themselves. But you're different. You're here because some part of you feels it, that whisper in your soul that says, there's more than this. And that whisper is the first sign of a true awakening. Let me tell you something that most people will never understand. Spiritual awakening isn't a reward. It's not a trophy for living a good life or following the rules. It's a calling, and not everyone will answer it. Why? Because awakening is disruptive. It will shatter everything you think you know. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. And that process, it's messy, it's terrifying, but it's also the most beautiful thing you'll ever experience. The first sign of true awakening is disconnection. You begin to feel like you don't belong. The things that used to excite you, parties, social media, small talk, they start to feel empty. You might even feel like an outsider in your own family. And here's the kicker. This disconnection is not a problem. It's a sign that your soul is waking up. You're starting to see through the illusions that keep most people trapped. You're starting to realize that the world you've been living in is a construct, a web of beliefs, expectations, and fears that has nothing to do with who you really are.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But here's where most people get stuck. When they start to feel this disconnection, they panic. They think something is wrong with them. They try to numb the feeling with distractions, Netflix, shopping, alcohol, whatever it takes to avoid facing the truth. But if you've made it this far, I'm guessing you're not one of those people. You're here because you're ready to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. And the truth is this: you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not even your body. You are something far greater, something infinite. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly stopped? Not just physically, but mentally. When was the last time you sat in silence and asked yourself, who am I? Because this question is the key to everything. It's like a portal that opens you up to the deepest layers of your being. But here's the catch. Most people are terrified to ask this question. Why? Because they're afraid of what they might find. They're afraid of the unknown. But you've already taken the first step. By being here, by listening to this, you've shown that you're willing to look beyond the surface. Now, let's talk about the second sign of true awakening: chaos. When you start to wake up, your life often falls apart. Jobs end, relationships dissolve, old habits and identities crumble. It's as if the universe is saying, if you want to step into your true self, you have to let go of everything that isn't you. And let's be honest, that's terrifying. It feels like losing control. But here's the paradox. By letting go, you gain access to a deeper level of truth. You start to realize that the things you thought you needed were never really yours to begin with. Think about it. How many of your goals, dreams, or beliefs are truly your own? How many of them were handed to you by society, your parents, or your culture? The process of awakening is about stripping away all the layers of conditioning until you're left with the raw, unfiltered essence of who you are. And, let me tell you, that essence is more powerful than you can imagine. But here's the challenge. Most people resist this process. They cling to their old identities because it feels safe. They'd rather stay in the comfort of their illusions than face the uncertainty of the unknown. But you're different. You're here because you've felt the pull of something greater. And that brings us to the third sign of true awakening: intuition. As you awaken, your connection to your intuition becomes stronger. You start to feel a deeper sense of knowing, an inner guidance that doesn't come from logic or reason. It's as if your soul is speaking to you, guiding you toward your highest path. But here's the tricky part. Intuition doesn't always make sense. It might tell you to leave a stable job, end a relationship, or take a leap of faith that terrifies you. And your mind, it'll try to talk you out of it. It'll say, this is crazy, this isn't practical, what if you fail? But deep down, you'll know the truth. You'll feel it in your gut, in your heart, in the very core of your being. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly trusted your intuition? Not just in small decisions, but in the big ones, because trusting your intuition is one of the most powerful things you can do. It's like saying to the universe, I trust you. I trust myself. I'm ready to step into the unknown. And if you're still with me, I want to congratulate you, because this path isn't easy. It's not for the faint of heart. Awakening will test you. It will challenge everything you think you know. But it will also set you free. It will show you who you really are, a soul, infinite and eternal, here to experience the beauty and mystery of existence. So here's my final question for this part. Are you ready to let go? Because the next step in your journey requires courage. It requires you to release everything that no longer serves you. Your fears, your doubts, your attachments, and step boldly into the unknown. And trust me, what's waiting for you on the other side is more beautiful than you can imagine. Let's dive deeper now. Awakening isn't just a soft, glowing moment of peace where everything feels harmonious and perfect. No, true awakening is raw, it's intense. It's like standing in the middle of a sacred fire, watching as everything you thought you were burns away, And if you felt this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That fire, the one that strips you bare, will feel unbearable at times. You'll wonder if you've made a mistake. You'll doubt yourself. You'll want to run back to the comfort of your old life, back to the illusions that used to keep you safe. But here's the thing. The fire is where the transformation happens. Think about this for a moment. Why is fire such a sacred symbol in spiritual traditions across the world? Fire destroys, yes, but it also purifies. It burns away the impurities, the falsehoods, the illusions that no longer serve us. And in doing so, it creates space for something new to emerge. Awakening is no different, and it's not about adding something to your life. It's about letting go of everything that isn't you. And that process? It's painful, but it's also the most liberating experience you'll ever have. Let me ask you something. What are you still holding on to? Is it an identity, a belief, a relationship, a fear? Because awakening will demand that you release it all. The sacred fire doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your truth. It will burn away anything that isn't aligned with your highest self. And it won't stop until you're free. This is why so many people resist awakening. They want the freedom, the clarity, the peace, but they don't want to face the fire. And I get it. Who wouldn't? The fire is terrifying. But here's the truth. The fire is your ally, not your enemy. Let's explore what this fire looks like in your life. For some, it comes in the form of external chaos, losing a job, a relationship, or a sense of stability. For others, it's an internal storm, a deep sense of confusion, fear, or even despair. You might feel like you're being torn apart, like everything you've ever known is crumbling around you. And in a way it is, because awakening isn't just about seeing the truth. It's about dismantling everything that stands in the way of it. And that process can feel brutal. But here's what you need to understand. This destruction is sacred. It's not random. It's not a punishment. It's the universe clearing the path for your true self to emerge. Imagine a forest fire. To the untrained eye, it might seem like devastation. But in reality, that fire is creating fertile ground for new growth. The same is true for you. The fire of awakening is burning away the old stagnant parts of your life so that something new can take root. And the more you resist it, the more painful it becomes. But when you surrender to the fire, when you trust that it's here to serve you, something incredible happens. You begin to transform. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you let the fire do its work? What would happen if you stopped resisting, stopped clinging, and allowed yourself to be completely undone? Because that's the real invitation of awakening, to let go of everything you think you are so that you can discover who you've always been. Now, let me share something that might surprise you. The fire of awakening isn't just about destruction. It's also about creation. As the old parts of you burn away, new aspects of your soul begin to emerge. You might start to feel a deep sense of purpose, a calling that you can't quite explain. You might notice that your intuition is sharper, your creativity is flowing, or your relationships are shifting in profound ways. These are signs that your true self is beginning to shine through. But here's the tricky part. This process isn't linear. Awakening doesn't happen all at once. It's not like flipping a switch and suddenly living in eternal bliss. No, it's more like peeling an onion. Layer by layer, you uncover deeper truths about yourself, and each layer comes with its own challenges, its own fire. Just when you think you've figured it out, a new layer emerges and the process begins again. This is why awakening isn't a destination, it's a journey, and that journey requires patience, courage, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Let me ask you again, are you willing to embrace the unknown? Because the truth is, the sacred fire doesn't come with a map. It doesn't tell you where it's taking you or how long the process will last. All it asks is that you trust it. And trust, my friend, is one of the hardest lessons of awakening. It's easy to trust when things are going well, but what about when everything is falling apart? What about when you're standing in the middle of the fire with no idea what's on the other side? That's when true trust is born, not the kind of trust that comes from certainty, but the kind that comes from surrender. And here's the thing, the fire doesn't just burn away the false parts of you, it also burns away the illusions you have about life. You start to see through the stories you've been told about success, happiness, love, and even spirituality. You realize that most of what people chase is just a distraction, a way to avoid facing the deeper truths of existence. And this realization is both liberating and terrifying, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to living the way you did before. You're forever changed. But here's the beautiful part. As the fire burns away the illusions, it reveals something extraordinary, your own light. You start to realize that the peace, joy, and love you've been searching for have been within you all along. They weren't hidden behind some external achievement or relationship. They were buried beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. And as those layers burn away, your true self begins to shine brighter than ever. So let me ask you one final question for this part. Are you ready to see your own light? Because that's what the fire is ultimately leading you toward, not destruction, but revelation. It's showing you who you really are, beyond the stories, beyond the fears, beyond the illusions. And who you are is nothing short of miraculous. The fire of awakening is not easy, but it is worth it. It will take you to the depths of your being, and in those depths, you will find treasures you never imagined. You will find your strength, your clarity, your purpose. You will find the truth of who you are. And once you've seen that truth, nothing in the world will ever be the same again. Let's take this even deeper. By now you've felt the fire of awakening, or at the very least, glimpsed its edges. But here's where the real shift begins. True awakening is not just about destruction and chaos. It's about awareness. It's about learning to recognize the signs that your soul is waking up to its infinite truth. These signs are subtle, profound, and often misunderstood. They are gifts, not loud dramatic gestures, but quiet whispers that guide you toward your true self. The question is, are you paying attention? Let's start with perhaps the most profound sign of awakening: a shift in perception. One day, you wake up and realize that the world doesn't look the same. Colors seem brighter, sounds seem richer. You notice the way the wind brushes against your skin, or the way sunlight filters through the trees. It's as if the fabric of reality has shifted, revealing a deeper layer of existence that you never noticed before. And in that moment, you feel something you can't quite explain, a sense of wonder, awe, and connection. But here's the thing. This shift in perception doesn't happen randomly. It's not just about seeing the beauty in the world. It's about remembering that you are the beauty. You start to see that everything, every leaf, every cloud, every person is a reflection of the same divine energy that flows through you. And that realization changes everything. You begin to move through life with a sense of sacredness, as if every moment is imbued with meaning. And the truth is, it always was. You just weren't awake enough to see it. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly saw the world? Not through the lens of your mind, with its judgments and labels, but with the eyes of your soul. Because that's what awakening does. It strips away the filters of your mind and allows you to see reality as it truly is: infinite, interconnected, alive. And once you've seen the world this way, you can't unsee it. You begin to realize that the separation you once believed in, the separation between you and others, between you and nature, between you and the divine, was never real. It was just an illusion created by your mind. Another sign of awakening is emotional intensity. You might find yourself feeling emotions you didn't even know you had. Joy, sadness, anger, love. All of it becomes amplified. At times it might feel overwhelming, as if you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. But here's the truth. These emotions are not here to punish you. They're here to free you. You see, most of us spend our lives suppressing our emotions, pushing them down because we're afraid to feel them fully. But awakening doesn't let you do that. It brings everything to the surface, demanding that you face it, feel it, and ultimately release it. And this process? It's not easy. It can feel like being swept away by a tidal wave of emotion with no anchor to hold on to. But here's the paradox. The more you resist these emotions, the stronger they become, and the more you allow yourself to feel them, the more they dissolve. This is one of the great lessons of awakening. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are your guide. They are trying to show you where you're still holding on to pain, fear, or resistance. And by facing them, you begin to heal. So let me ask you this. What emotions are you still afraid to feel? Because those emotions are the key to your freedom. The more you allow yourself to feel them, the more you release the weight you've been carrying. And as you release that weight, you begin to feel lighter, freer, more alive. You start to realize that the emotions are not something to run from. They are something to embrace. They are the language of your soul, guiding you back to your true self. Now, let's talk about another sign of awakening, a deep longing for meaning. As you awaken, you might find yourself questioning everything. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? These questions are not new. They've been asked by philosophers, sages, and seekers for centuries. But when you're awakening, they take on a new urgency. It's as if your soul is pulling you towards something deeper, something more authentic. You start to realize that the things you once thought mattered, money, status, approval, are not as important as you once believed. What matters is truth. What matters is connection. What matters is love. But here's where many people get stuck. They think they need to find their purpose out there. They think their purpose is a job, a mission, or a role they need to fulfill. And while those things can be expressions of your purpose, they are not your purpose itself. Your true purpose is not something you do, it's something you are. It's the energy you bring to the world, the way you show up in every moment. It's the love, compassion, and authenticity you embody, and when you connect with that, everything else falls into place. Let me ask you this: what would your life look like if you stopped chasing and started being? Because that's the real shift of awakening. It's not about doing more, it's about being more. It's about remembering that you are already enough, that you don't need to prove yourself or earn your worth. Your worth is inherent. It's not something you achieve, it's something you realize. Another sign of awakening is synchronicity. As you align with your true self, you'll start to notice patterns and coincidences that feel almost magical. You'll think about someone and they'll call. You'll ask a question and the answer will appear in the form of a book, a conversation, or a random encounter. These synchronicities are not accidents. They are signs that you're in alignment with the flow of the universe. They're like breadcrumbs, guiding you toward your highest path. Have you ever experienced a moment like this? A moment so perfectly timed that it felt like the universe was speaking directly to you? If so, take it as a sign. These moments are reminders that you are not alone, that there is a greater intelligence at work in your life. And the more you pay attention to them, the more they will appear. Synchronicity is a language, and the more fluent you become in it, the more deeply you'll connect with the flow of life. Finally, let's talk about compassion. As you awaken, you'll start to feel a deep sense of empathy for others. You'll begin to see their struggles, their pain, their fears, not as flaws, but as part of the human experience. You'll realize that everyone is on their own journey, and that journey is just as valid as yours. This compassion doesn't mean you let people walk all over you or that you ignore your own needs. It means you approach others with an open heart, seeing them not as separate from you, but as reflections of the same divine energy. So let me leave you with this question. What would happen if you treated every person you met as if they were a mirror of yourself? Because in truth, they are. When you see others with compassion, you are seeing yourself. And in that seeing, something miraculous happens. The illusion of separation begins to dissolve. you start to realize that we are all connected, all part of the same infinite whole. Awakening is not a destination, it's a journey. And along the way, these signs will guide you. They are not random, they are gifts, reminders of the truth that has always been within you. The question is, are you ready to embrace them? This is where the real challenge begins. Awakening isn't just about discovering the truth of who you are. It's about living that truth in a world that often feels completely disconnected from it. The moment you wake up, you'll realize something that no one prepares you for. The majority of people around you are still asleep. They're trapped in the same illusions you've just freed yourself from. They're chasing external validation, clinging to their beliefs, and avoiding the deeper truths of existence. And now, here you are, trying to live as your authentic, awakened self in the midst of all of this. So, how do you do it? How do you walk through a world that is still asleep without losing yourself? How do you stay awake when everything around you is pulling you back towards slumber? The answer lies in one word: integration. Awakening isn't about escaping the world or isolating yourself from it. It's about bringing your newfound awareness into every aspect of your life. It's about becoming a living embodiment of the truth you've discovered. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Once you awaken, you'll start to notice things you never noticed before. You'll see through the facades people wear, the lies they tell themselves, the ways they avoid their own pain. You might feel a sense of frustration or even loneliness, wondering, why can't they see what I see? But here's the key. It's not your job to wake anyone else up. Your awakening is yours, and theirs is theirs. Every soul has its own timing, its own path. And just as you wouldn't want someone to rush your journey, you must honor theirs. Let me ask you this. Can you hold compassion for those who are still asleep? Because that's one of the greatest signs of true awakening. The ability to see others not as less than, but as reflections of the same divine essence, even if they haven't realized it yet. Compassion doesn't mean you agree with everything they do or say. It means you see beyond their actions, beyond their words, to the soul beneath it all. And when you live from that place of compassion, something amazing happens. Your presence becomes a catalyst for change. You see, living as your true self doesn't require you to preach or convert anyone. It doesn't require you to shout your truth from the rooftops. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do is simply be. Be the example, be the light, be the calm in the storm. When you live authentically, people will feel it. They might not understand it, but they'll sense something different about you. And that difference will plant a seed that might not sprout immediately, but one that will grow when they're ready. But here's where it gets tricky. Living authentically means being willing to stand alone. There will be times when your truth doesn't align with the world around you. You might lose friends, relationships, or opportunities because of it. People might misunderstand you, judge you, or even reject you. But here's the thing. What you lose in the process of living authentically is never truly yours to begin with. The people and things that fall away are simply making space for something more aligned with your higher self. And what you gain, peace, clarity, freedom, is worth more than anything you could ever lose. As you integrate your awakening into your daily life, you'll start to notice new challenges. You'll see how easy it is to get pulled back into old patterns, reacting out of fear, seeking external validation, or falling into the trap of judgment. But here's the good news. Awakening doesn't require you to be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes or have moments of doubt. It simply means you're aware. And awareness is everything. The moment you notice yourself slipping back into old patterns, you have the power to choose differently. And every time you choose love over fear, authenticity over conformity, presence over distraction, you strengthen your connection to your true self. And finally, let's talk about service. As you awaken, you'll feel a natural desire to give back, to share the light you've discovered with others. But this doesn't mean you have to become a teacher, a healer, or a spiritual guide, unless that's your calling. Service can take many forms. It might be as simple as listening deeply to someone who is struggling, or as profound as creating something that inspires others. The key is to let your service flow naturally from who you are. When you live authentically, your very presence becomes a gift to the world. Wow! So let me leave you with this question. What is your gift? Because you have one. Every soul does. And the more you connect with your true self, the more that gift will reveal itself. It might not look like what you expect. It might not come with recognition or applause. But it will feel true. And that feeling, that's how you know you're living as your awakened self. Living as your true self in a world that is still asleep is not easy, but it is the greatest act of courage you can undertake. It is a silent revolution, a ripple of change that begins within you and spreads outward. And as you walk this path, remember, you are not alone. There are others like us who are walking it with you. Together, we are creating a new way of being, a new world rooted in love, truth, and unity. This is the awakened life, and it begins with you.